Um, Megs?
Yeah. Hey Don. Okay, you were getting blocked by the screen. I was like, where are you?
Welcome, everybody, as you're coming in. Hi there. Let's see, John. Hi, John. Can you can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.
Hello, 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 everybody. Hello, hello. If I could ask everyone to just quiet down, please, that would be great. Thank you so much. My name is Don, and I'm the founder and the CEO of this company called Roomkey. And it is a really unique way for people to come together as a supplement to Zoom calls. So I see the green table over there is full of people. That is fantastic. Can we maybe have everyone that's at the green table move over towards the red table and the light teal table that are up front? And that way that we can have some crowd engagement. The way you move, yep, perfect. I saw Christina just figured it out. The way you move is by clicking on other tables, and you'll notice that you move between the different tables and you'll teleport around. So if we could just have everybody do that, perfect. Thank you, Leslie. Appreciate that. Laura, thank you. Each table is private. So after the session, as some of you have realized so far, you can actually have private conversations with everybody at your table. And so only the people sitting with you will be able to hear you, but feel free to bounce around between all the different tables. And one of the coolest parts about the platform is the actual crowd reactions. And so one of the things that we're going to do right now is practice the clapping and give a big, big, big warm welcome to both Maggie and to Chris, because they've been working really hard on putting together this content. Woo! Thank you. Maggie and Chris, I'm going to let you two take it away, and I will sit down there with the audience.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you, everybody. It's exciting to see you all there. Um, one thing that I would quickly say is that if you are by yourself at a table, you probably want to try to move to a table that has somebody in it, just because there will be quite a bit of interactivity during the sessions, and you will want to be working with somebody else. And for those of you who are on YouTube, interact with each other using your chats and so on. So I'm going to start by introducing myself. I'm Chris Wildermuth. I have a dual hat. I am a professor at Drake University, where I direct the Master of Science in Leadership Development. And then I also have a presence on in social media on LinkedIn. So I'm the chair, the community chair for Linked HR and several other groups on LinkedIn. Most of them are related to either leadership or HR or HRD or TD or something like that, right? And then I'm also Maggie's mom. And Maggie is about to leave to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to miss her tremendously. So I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Maggie Wildermuth. I just graduated with my Bachelor's of Science from Drake University. And as Mom mentioned, I'm starting my PhD in clinical psychology in the fall at Gallaudet University. Thank you. So I am a big, huge gamification nerd, and I am really excited to talk to you guys today about how to turn anything into a game.
Okay, so just a few housekeeping items. For those of you who need the SHRM number, whether you're here in the room or whether you're at YouTube, we're going to be sharing that number at the end of the presentation. That's always a request that SHRM makes. And also, if you signed up for the event on Eventbrite, then I have the list of participants there, and I send an email to everybody at the end of the session letting them know what their SHRM number was for their records. If you did not sign in for the event and you are on YouTube, feel free to contact me so that I can write you back. I mean, you will still be able to see the event number on the screen, right? On SHRM, you can still write it down. But if you need to contact me, feel free to do so. Um, let's see what else. I think Don has already gone through the how do you chat at your table and how do you send a chat and how do you look around, right, Don? Have you gone through all that? Okie dokie. All right.
Mom, I don't
Yes.
believe that the slides are moving.
The what? The slides
The
are moving?
the slides are not going.
Oh. You know why the slides are not going? Because maybe, hold on a second. Sorry, guys. Okay, it would be very helpful if I shared my screen. How about now? Is that a different side?
Yes, there we go.
Ah, yay. All right, you guys should have seen Maggie and I in our rehearsals. So hopefully this is the only time that I'm going to mess up today. I wouldn't put it past me to mess up again though. All right, so let's move on. And also the thing that we always warn people is that the session is being recorded.
If you guys would like to see the PowerPoint a little bit bigger, you can click on the screen at the front and it will enlarge it in your personal computer screen.
Yep. All right, so here's our roadmap, what we're going to be doing today, explaining the importance of games and themes, listing the basic components of a game, using themes to facilitate gamification, and of course we're going to be discussing what themes mean anyway and why they matter, and then how you can adapt existing games to learning purposes. Maggie and I often say that one of our best ways to create games is just go to Barnes and Noble and start looking around. So that's basically our roadmap. And we'll start with mission one, which is Maggie.
So our first mission for all of you today is the secret agent mission. So, Mom, if you can move the slide. Right. So at your tables, if you are here in Room Key with us or in the YouTube chat, if you are watching the live stream, we would like you to share your secret agent name, share your secret power, and tell everyone what the most boring training session you've ever been to is. Everybody got that?
How much time do we give them, Maggie?
Do you guys think that a few minutes is a good enough amount of time? Okay.
Like
We'll
three
give you a few
minutes?
minutes to chat. Yeah. 3 minutes is probably fine. All right. Has everybody gotten a chance to share? How are we doing? Yeah? How's the green table? Is everybody?
Okay, so how about you guys enter in the chat? How about you guys enter in the chat some of your names? Can you guys give a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, there's a question over there. Oh, yay, thank you. Okay, let's see. Who has a question? It is Lori. Uh, Dawn, how do I answer Lori's question from here?
Oh my goodness, I'm on
Hi,
stage.
Lori.
That's so strange. Okay, I just had the question that I'm still disconnected from the chat server, so I'm not allowed to do it.
Hey, Lori. That's probably a bug. We're unfortunately not perfect yet, but I'll keep you updated at our table of what's going on.
Awesome, thank you. And everybody can hear me, right? So I guess, Maggie, we can move on.
Alrighty then.
Okay, so this part is about why are we talking about games and themes? And yes, Maggie and I love games and themes, but we certainly do this with a purpose. So what are we talking about? We're talking about what we call serious games. And serious games are not necessarily boring games or games that cannot be fun or funny. Serious games are games that have a purpose. And this purpose could be, for example, to teach people something or to achieve a particular learning objective. But games are also used to change behaviors in a public manner. So, for example, if you want people to recycle more or you want people to drive more slowly in the highways. So, there have been very successful games created for public campaigns and for societal improvements and things of that nature. So we're talking about today not games as in you buy a board of Monopoly and the only purpose is winning that game itself. There isn't any other purpose other than entertainment. We're talking about games that go a step further. And yes, you do get entertained, but there are other purposes in there.
Now, that being said, what can serious games do for you? Why are we talking about gamifying training at all? Well, if you're asking me or mom, we're simply going to say, oh, but games are fun. Why wouldn't you want to do games? But the question here is, that many of you may be thinking is, do games provide any benefit for trainers? Does gamified material help improve the learning process? And there's actually quite a bit of research on this. So there's evidence that gamification increases engagement for perhaps obvious reasons. Gamification increases the likelihood that people will be engaged. Gamification is also associated with lower activation of the default mode network. Now, without getting too far into the neuroscience of this, the default mode network of your brain is exactly what it sounds like. It's the part of your brain that's kind of active when you're not doing anything else in particular. And I do see a question over at the green table from Sandra. However, so that's the part of your brain that's active when you might be daydreaming or when you might be not particularly focused on your task. So if we're experiencing lower activation of the default mode network when we're doing gamified trainings, it's likely that we're paying more attention and focusing on the training rather than daydreaming or going off into space. Hi there, Sandra.
Hi. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing.
Don't worry. We're all learning together. Do you have a question?
So what's your, okay.
No, I was just having some complications. I'm not able to use the chat, and people were talking over each other. I was not gathering much information at all whatsoever. So I was seeking help.
Got it. So one solution, I'm sorry about the chat issue. I would say one solution is to go to a smaller table or a table that has fewer people. Let's see, it's Sarah, right? Sandra. Sandra. And then if you have a question about the material, just raise your hand and we're just going to answer you directly. Does that work? Okay. So I can't hear you, Sandra. So if you can go, for example, to the magenta table over there, there isn't anybody there, so you wouldn't be hearing anything. Awesome. And then if we hear you asking a question, we'll just answer you directly. All right, go ahead, Megs.
Alrighty. Additionally, gamified material is better retained. So there's not much evidence that gamified material is more effectively learned in the moment. People who learn gamified material and material that isn't gamified tend to perform similarly well on tests within a few minutes or a few hours of training. The difference is in a few months, people who learn gamified material are more likely to still remember the material later than people who did not learn gamified material, which is a really big issue in training. So that's a really huge benefit that gamification can provide. And then finally, the final benefit we're going to talk about today is called FEARO. So FEARO is the excitement one gets after overcoming a difficult challenge in a game world. It's related to the psychological state of flow, which is that feeling. Does everybody know that feeling that you get when you're kind of like really in the zone on a project and you kind of shut out all distractions and you'll work for hours and hours and you're just so excited to be working on that thing? That's the concept of flow. FEARO is the same thing as flow. It's simply in the game context. Now, this is a pleasurable state. People like feeling this. So when your participants are feeling FEARO or feeling flow, they're engaged, they're less distracted, and they're excited about training. And I think we can all probably agree that that's something that we want if we can have it. I also need your help. So here's the thing. Mom and I were, I just moved chairs. Whoops. Mom and I were outside planning this presentation the other day, and we had our notes with us. And you see the most horrible thing happen. This guy rode by on his bike, and he stole our final page of our notes. Crazy, right? So, we don't know how we're going to finish this presentation. We don't know what the final phrase that we're going to use in this presentation is. So we need your help, guys, because we put some clues throughout the presentation, some things that we've remembered to see. We put some things that we remembered in the presentation to trigger our memories at the end. But we don't know what our final phrase is. So we need your help to figure it out, or we will never end this presentation. Throughout the presentation, you will see these little clues, these little word pictorial puzzles. And your job is to see if you can figure out what word the pictures represent. And use that to figure out what our final phrase of our presentation is. And if you guys don't figure it out, we're going to be here forever. Have you accepted your mission? No? Okay. You,
Okay.
okay.
Don't worry, you don't really need to be here forever. So that takes us to mission number 2, the case. Now, I understand that some folks are having some issues going with the chat. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys talk directly on the table, and then I will just give the microphone to somebody directly on your table and have you stand up or whatever and tell us what it is. But the idea is, what topic would you like to gamify? So have a very brief conversation at your table, or if you're on YouTube, chat with each other, and then in a minute or so, I'll ask you guys to report.
Does this work? Hey, you with the tan shirt and the blue glasses, can you hear me?
All right. It looks like our time is up. Which table would like to go first? Hi
Laura and
there.
I will share ours.
All right.
Hi. Okay, so we didn't have enough time, I think. It was very short for a discussion, but what I've suggested is that we could think about gamifying, teaching people how to use LinkedIn, how to create their profile, because that's something that nowadays everybody needs, a good LinkedIn profile. So yeah, maybe if we can gamify that, it would be nicer for people to just use the platform and know their way through there.
Nice. That's a
Awesome.
great idea.
Thank you so much. All right, let's invite Leslie now.
Can you hear
All
me?
right. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I have used Kahoot and Poll Everywhere in the past to gamify our trainings when we're talking about laws and policies in our organization, because I know that that's kind of a boring topic most of the time. And so what we do is we talk about policies and laws that supervisors should follow, and then we follow up with a quiz on Poll Everywhere and Kahoot so that we engage them, but they like keeping score, and we offer swag for the winner. And so it's been really engaging, and people like that training a lot, which they typically don't like that training as much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else who, and if you have access to the chat, the problem now is that I don't know who has access to the chat and who doesn't. So if you have access to the chat, feel free to enter the notes on the chat. If you don't have access to the chat, just raise your hand to be recognized. And if you don't want to come to the stage, I think there's a way that I'm trying to learn this thing myself that I can recognize you even at the table. All right, Don. All right, Maggie, let's move on.
All right, so first we're going to start out in our first module, which is talking about the basic elements of any game. So by the end of this module, you should know what makes a game, basically.
Oops. Sorry.
And starting that module, we have another mission, Secret Agent Recruits. We need you all to save the world. So here's what's going on. An evil group has set a bunch of bombs all over the town of Trainertopia. And we need you to go to each bomb and use the secret code to defuse it. But unfortunately, when we got the intelligence, all of the codes got scrambled. So we need you guys to figure out what the codes are and enter them in to defuse the bombs and save Trainertopia. Is everybody up to the task? Yeah. Alrighty. Okay, so here's how this is going to work. You will see 5 scrambled phrases or words on the PowerPoint screen. You have 4 minutes to unscramble them before the bombs explode and Trainertopia is destroyed. You are not only allowed, but encouraged to work within your tables. However, don't share the answers across tables. YouTubers, since we know you have the disadvantage of not having a table, you are allowed to ask for help in the chat. However, that help needs to be clues. You are not allowed to give direct answers or ask for direct answers. Everybody kind of get how this is going to work? Any questions? All right, everyone. Your time starts as soon as Mom sets the timer.
Oops.
Go.
It's 4 minutes, we said, right?
Yes, the bomb explodes in 4 minutes.
And about half the time has passed. and 51 seconds.
If you need a hint from the presenters, now might be the time to raise your hand.
Oops. My bad. Every time I touch this thing. Okay, it looks like we're out of time here. Oops, no, stop.
So everyone, did we save Trainertopia? Woohoo! Great job, recruits!
Okay, could we have somebody from the table? Let's see. I'm looking at the back, the table where I have Christina and others were. If you want to come over to be recognized, just raise your hand. Laura, would you want to come? Oh, there you go. Okay, Leslie, take it on.
All right. Goal, rules, immediate feedback, definition of success, and voluntary participation.
Ooh, that's it. Good job. Thank you. All right. All right. Let me move on here. Mags?
Oh, it looks like we have our first clue in the clue hunt. Can you guys figure out what this picture means? We'll give you a minute. And also, as a side note, you may want to have a piece of scratch paper for this exercise. So, or, bring up your phone and have the notes app or something. Just something that you can write down a note.
Yep. So that is clue number 1 for people who don't want to stay here forever.
In all seriousness, folks, we will not make you stay here forever. That's part of the game.
Yes, and also don't worry because these pictures will appear again. All right, so we're going to go through each of these elements of a game separately. The first one is every game has a goal. Every game has rules. One of the big advantages of games is the immediate feedback that you get. We're going to talk about voluntary participation and how that applies or doesn't apply in the workplace. And finally, what should we do about the definition of success for a serious game?
Okay, now the first thing that we want to talk about is that every game has a goal. And in particular, every game that is a serious game actually has 2 goals. So whenever you're creating a game, and while this is not an element of the game, this is something that's common in every game, you're creating a story. You're creating a world where your participants get to live and interact in while they're in the game. So there's always, unlike a game for entertainment, in a serious game, there's always 2 goals. There's the goal that's inside the world that you've created. There's the game goal. And then there's the learning target, or what you need your participants to be able to do when they leave the game world and go into the real world. So the game goal is, in the storyline, what are your participants trying to accomplish? Whereas the learning objective is, what do your participants have to learn to get there? In order to reach your game goal, your participants should automatically get the learning objective. And I believe we have another slide here. Yeah. So what was our goal? Well, we had our 2 goals, right? The first goal was our game goal, and that was to defuse all of the bombs and save Trainertopia. But in order to that, you had to meet the learning objective, or you had to be able to list the 5 elements of a game. Making sense? Yeah, you can move on.
Okay, ready? Okay, so what were our rules? And this time I'm going to ask anybody who is in the audience who wants to tell us what our rules were to like raise your hand or to do something to be recognized. And don't worry, I'm not going to make you come to the stage. I'm just going to give you the microphone wherever you are. Anybody brave to say what our rules were? Don, I may pick on you. Oh, yay. Okay, Sandra. Good job, Sandra. So let me see how I do that. I go here and I offer public mic. All right, Sandra, right from where you are, you can let us know.
It was to talk amongst your table and not to share the answers with the other teams.
Exactly. So we had that rule. Any other rule that you can think of?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Maggie, what other rules did we have?
Well, it was a word scramble puzzle, right? So you weren't supposed to find words or enter in hangman letters, which is actually a previous iteration of this game that we designed. You had to unscramble the words. Believe it or not, that's actually a rule. That's how you play the game.
And also, you had only a limited amount of time, so you couldn't go on and on about that. Okay, so those were the rules to the game. And how did you get immediate feedback? That is when Maggie and I were rehearsing this presentation and running it with some of our friends. That was a question that trumped a lot of people. How did you get immediate feedback for this game? Anybody has any thoughts? If you do, raise your hand. Yay. Okay, let's see. Who was that? That was Laura. And then I also saw, yeah, it was Laura, right? Or was it Annie?
It
I
was
think
Laura.
it was Laura. Laura? Okay, Laura. And then I go here and I offer the public mic. Go ahead, Laura, you have the mic. You are muted though, or something.
Make sure you accept the public mic, Laura.
All right. Okay, am I good now?
Yep,
Yes.
we can
Okay.
hear you.
Just the emoticons to the right, or your voice?
Okay, so that's how you were getting immediate feedback. So you were getting what you're saying is that you were getting immediate feedback from your table mates then, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so there were other ways that you were getting immediate feedback from the game. For example, if you came up with a word that did not exist, that was immediate feedback. If the word that you came up with didn't have the exact number of letters that you were looking for, that was immediate feedback. So in a way, there's feedback that you got from your table mates, but even if you were working totally on your own on this game, there would be feedback that was intrinsic to the game that would lead you in the right direction. And what about voluntary participation? Okay, so that part is a little trickier. In a session such as we have today, of course, being here is voluntary. Being here versus being on YouTube is voluntary, right? Like you all signed up for this, and if we're going to have it, and I already tell you in the instructions that you're going to become an avatar, that's definitely voluntary. But imagine that you create a program with games in your organization organization or with gamified elements in your organization, how do you make it voluntary? And Maggie, yesterday when we were running this, there was an interesting conversation about leaderboards. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a lot of companies gamify participation, right? Are we all familiar with the concept of a leaderboard? It's super common in sales or in any like organization that's trying to gamify a metric, right? Where you rank workers based on how well they're doing on some kind of metric and everybody can see the leaderboard. And the conversation we had yesterday with our beta tester was, you know, does a leaderboard need to have voluntary participation? Well, in my opinion, yes, it does, because there are many reasons why somebody would not want their performance to be on public display. Some people get really embarrassed to have their performance on display like that. Some people simply do worse when it's subject to public scrutiny because they feel a lot of shame surrounding their performance. It can make people feel embarrassed to come forward about why they're struggling. And in a lot of leaderboard or gamification situations, companies forget to ask participants whether or not they would like to opt in. If you make the game fun, if you make a gamification thing fun for your company, a lot of people will want to opt in simply because it's a good time. But there's a couple things I think we should keep in mind whenever we're gamifying anything. The first is whenever you force a participant to play something that they didn't sign up for, the game no longer is fun. It's something that they have to do. It's work. And that immediately is going to hurt your chances of getting some of those great benefits that we talked about earlier. Second thing to keep in mind is there are many reasons why a participant doesn't want to play a game that has nothing to do with how you designed it. And sometimes we just have to honor people's wishes. You'll notice that as we go throughout the presentation today, we're not requiring you to turn in any evidence of the fact that you played any of these games in order to get your SHRM certification credit. Even so, or, you know, how do I put this? People have reasons that they don't want to play. And sometimes it's really important to just make sure you're honoring that reason and allowing people to make their own decisions. And that's how you're going to get the best outcomes in a situation.
Thanks a bunch. Okay, so the issue with voluntary participation in games is in the workplace is something that we should be talking about, right? For example, we're having this meeting here today. That's something that I would probably, if I were introducing it in an organization, I would pilot it first and then see how comfortable people would be and then bring people in gradually, because if people sign in for it, they may get super excited. But like Maggie was saying, if they're forced into it, then all of a sudden you may have a problem. So have you discussed the idea of gamification with your stakeholders? Does the game match the culture of your organization in some way? So you may make the game more playful if your organization is playful, or you may make it more serious if your organization is more serious. And are there options? For example, I teach a course called Ethics and the Game of Thrones, and that class is highly gamified. But what I talk to my grad students about is, okay, if you have a problem participating in a course called Ethics and the Game of Thrones, there are other ethics courses that you can take to substitute this one for your program. So then there are options to the person who doesn't want to do it. Okay, Maggie.
Finally, all games have a meaning of success. Now, this sounds to a lot of people very similar to the idea of a goal. Basically, and they're related, but basically the meaning of success is the metric that says, yes, the participant has reached the goal, they have won the game, they have done what they need to do. So, would anybody like to share what they think the meaning of success is for our Save the World game?
And
Go
if you
ahead
prefer, I was going to say, if you have access to the chat and you prefer to do it that way, go ahead. Who raised the hand? Was it Dawn?
It was Dawn.
Go ahead, Dawn.
I was just gonna say, I think the definition of success here is that people walk away feeling like they're comfortable and able to take this on their own and host their own games within their organization. So I think it's walking away with that confidence from today.
I think that's our definition of success. That's for sure. And I think that's the definition of success for the presentation. Not quite what we were going for the definition of game success, though. No worries. This one's really difficult. Any thoughts? Okay. The definition of success is that you had 5 unscrambled words. A lot of people overthink this one. It's how you know you won the game. How did you know you won the game? You had 5 unscrambled words at the
end. All right. So next, Maggie's going to talk about themes, themification, and why themes are important in the gamification world.
So first we have our 4th mission, Secret Agents Recruits, and this one is a party. We are planning an extra special party at our Secret Agent headquarters, and we want to know...
Oh.
Yeah.
That's my cue.
If you were planning a party, what themes could you use? If you have access to the chat or you are on YouTube, you can just type it in the chat. If not, we're going to give you a minute to very quickly just say it to your table. It doesn't need to be a huge discussion, just say it.
And I'm already seeing that some folks are entering it on the chat. Somebody wrote, Barbara wrote Harry Potter. Ooh, vintage tea party. That sounds like one that I would like to go to.
You got access to the chat? Yay.
Yeah, I do. I'm special.
Also, I want to go to a vintage tea party training.
Clue, Laura, totally.
It looks like most people have reported. Are we good to move on? All right, everybody's got a theme in mind. Awesome. Keep that theme in mind as we go throughout this module. So what is a theme? So according to the Oxford Dictionary, a theme is anything that gives a particular setting or ambiance to something, which is a very broad definition. But it's just like a party theme, right? So does anybody want to raise their hand and tell us where this is? Anybody recognize this picture? Yeah, Laura. Do you have the public mic?
I can give it to her. Hold on. There it is. Laura, you have the mic.
I'm know by the bus that it's probably not, but it sure looks like the San Antonio Riverwalk.
It is not the San Antonio Riverwalk. That's a really good guess, though.
Anybody else would like to guess? Ooh, several people. Now I can't get. Can you guys raise the question again so that I can get? Oh.
I saw Lori and to the stage.
I know, I couldn't find the stage. I couldn't figure out where the stage was.
We're all
Okay.
still learning, folks.
Don, you may need to help me because Laura may or may not still have the public mic while I was getting late. All right, Maggie, keep on going with It's a Small World.
Oops,
Okay.
that's where I was going to say it's a small world. I'm up on the stage, but I'll go back to my seat.
Ding, ding, ding! Congratulations. So yes, this is It's a Small World from Disney World. Now, we bring up this picture for a reason. Why do we think that Disney is fun? I mean, it's a theme park. There are theme parks everywhere. Why is Disney so eminent? Well, Don, did you want to answer that question? Okay. So our argument is that Disney is so eminent because they're so heavily themed. If you look into the secrets of the Disney parks, at interviews with Imagineers and different facts about the park, you'll notice that they work very, very hard to immerse their participants or guests in the environment. For example, if you're in Epcot, which is one of the parks in Disney World, you can look and you can see a building from another park because it happens to be very tall. They picked the paint on that building so that it would blend into the skyline of the Morocco Pavilion in Epcot so that it didn't break the immersion. Disney does all sorts of tricks like this to really make sure that they don't ever break the story. They have really intense, heavy theming everywhere you go in that park, and that's one of the reasons that people have such a good time. We can bring Disney's lessons into our training to make our training more immersive and more exciting. So, but why themes, right? I mean, if you're talking to me and Mom, we're just going to say, but they're fun. Why wouldn't you want to use themes? But why should we invest effort into this as trainers, really? Well, I'm going to, and of course I just moved chairs again. All right. So I'm going to talk about John Radoff's model. Radoff is a games researcher, and he developed this 4-quadrant model of motivations why people want to use games, why people play games in the first place. Under his model, there are 4 different motivations that motivate people to play games. There's immersion, cooperation, achievement, and competition. Now, this is a book. Like, this model is an entire book. I'm not expecting you to know or really dive deep into this model in the 2 seconds that I'm going to go over it in this presentation, and you don't need to. There's basically 2 things I want you to take away from this slide. The first is that there are multiple reasons why people play games outside of a competition or, trying to win some kind of swag or award or something. People also play games to cooperate with other people and to be immersed in a story. So you can kind of go outside of the box of, a leaderboard or a team competition and design games that have other motivations too. Now, the other reason that I wanted to go over this is that immersion is a reason why people play games. Some people play games simply because they want to be immersed in a story world, which means the minute that you themify a presentation without doing any other work or designing anything else, you have already gamified your presentation. All right, so what is a theme in this context? A theme is anything that unifies your training program. So it can be any of the themes that we just talked about. You can theme your presentation after a vintage tea party or Harry Potter. Well, Harry Potter might be complicated if you're working for a for-profit company, but a vintage tea party would be a good theme. Or Clue. It's any element, any idea, any set of things that unifies your training program into one cohesive narrative. It makes developing games faster because when you already have a narrative for your whole training program, you already have the story elements that you need to build your game goal and your stories and construct all the different elements surrounding your games. It also helps the participants learn the material more deeply because it helps them connect their previous knowledge with the knowledge that you're teaching them now. So it gives them a little bit more material to associate. Whenever you're picking a theme or constructing a theme, you want to consider your audience and gather some intelligence there. Are you working for an educational institution? Are you working for an organization? Are you simply teaching your child how to do some math? Because what situation you're in is going to determine what types of themes are available for you. I can write a worksheet based on a popular video game that my child plays to teach them math, but I can't do the same thing in an organization because it's a for-profit organization and that would be a copyright infringement, right? Likewise, what is the culture like? Because that's going to determine how intense your theme is going to be and also what kinds of themes you can use. It may not be the best idea in a super serious, very stoic organization to bring out a bunch of dragons and dress up like Queen Guinevere, right? The same goes likewise in a playful organization. It may be more fun to do lots of bright colors and have a really exciting theme that gets people invested. So you want to consider these factors.
So a question that we often, oops, am I muted? No. So a question that we often get asked is, so what do you do if you work for a bank? What do you do if you work for a pretty serious organization? And what you do is you consider a game that would be related to that organization. For example, the values of that company or a customer service campaign or a main product or service. The main product or service one, my husband and I did a lot of consulting for a telecommunications company. So a lot of our games had to do with mobile phones and smartphones and dumb phones and so on. And people loved it. And they didn't need to be about, Snow White or princesses. It could be something about them. I also ran a program with, I think it was members of the Air Force. And as you can imagine, I had planes and adventures that involved planes falling and planes not falling and people loved it too. And there were gamified elements, but they were related to what the organization was like. Keep in mind that anything can be a theme as long as it emphasizes the environment and, like Maggie says, unifies what you're going through. So my question to you guys is, what is your theme? If you have access to the chat, you can write it in the chat. Otherwise, you can raise your hand if you don't have access to the chat. And I'm going to let Dawn do the honors because last time I messed it up miserably. So what is our theme? Anybody? If nobody has an idea, I'm going to ask Dawn. What do you think, Dawn?
I'd love to go. Well, I think my theme for pretty much the last 3 years of my life has been avatars and the idea of removing the video from remote communication. So pretty much everything that we do revolves around that. And we have used our avatars for games, specifically for team bonding. I think this is on topic, but actually we came in here as a team and we had someone who was up on stage who was running a trivia night. And then each of our people on our company split up into private tables. And then our theme, since it's all avatar based, we would dress our avatars to fit the theme of our team. So for example, I was Team Panda, so we all dressed up into black and white outfits and changed our avatars around. And then we did a trivia night. So that was really cool because it had rules, it had a start, it had an ending to it. It had people and it had winners, and then also it helped a lot with team bonding. So I think that's the right answer, but definitely my theme for anything I do seems to be avatars over the last few years.
So I think, Don, what you're telling us is what theme you really like, and it sounds like that's a perfect example of what I was talking about, a theme that would have something to do with the organization, right? What we were actually asking, and I probably did a poor job of that, was to ask what theme Maggie and I were using today. If you could sense that there is a theme in what we're doing. And I saw in the chat, I saw in the chat that a few people said detectives. Who is it that said detectives? I saw it in the chat just now. And whoever said detectives or James Bond or something like that, Barbara said secret agent. That's pretty much it. That's exactly what we were going for. And you can see that in the pictures and even in the fact that Maggie and I put, what's the name of this hat, Maggie?
I actually have no idea what well, it's a fedora, but I don't know if there's a special name for the brown fedora.
Yeah, we basically looked for whatever hats we could find, and we chose the colors, and then it's mostly on the PowerPoint slides or the Canva slides, because this is Canva, by the way. So what do
Going
you
off of
theme? Go ahead, Megs.
Going off of what Don mentioned, though, one of our pro tips is that it's a really good idea to have a stock theme in your pocket that you know really well, and you have like the pictures that you need to put on your PowerPoint already stored on your computer, and you can just whip it out when your boss says, "Hey, I need a training program next week, and it needs to be good," right? I know for me, my stock theme is superheroes. If I don't know what a training program is going to be, it's probably going to be superheroes because I know superhero fiction really well, and I know where I can find the pictures. I know how those stories kind of work. Mom's is usually medieval, anything medieval.
So, yes. And I will show you what I do with medieval in a moment. But just before I go there, just keep in mind that when you theme a training program, an orientation program, and onboarding for your organization. By the way, let me have a show of hands. Can you give me the thumbs up if you are in some HR or training and development capacity, even either human resource management or TD? Anybody here in that area? Okay, so when we talk about training programs or we talk about orientations, we know that we're talking about the world in which many of you live. So when you think about what to theme there, anything can be themed. So for example, if your theme is detectives, or let's say that your theme is a treasure hunt, then the invitation to the employees could be a treasure box that could be taken physically to their offices. Or if it's virtual, then it can be a digitalized box that opens with the actual letter coming up. And in case you're wondering where on earth do you get those digitalized boxes that open up stuff, here's a tip. Let's see if I can write that in the chat. There is a company called Presenters Media. I don't know if it's Presenters Media or Presenter Media, but it's one of the two. If you Google, you can find it very easily. I have nothing to do with that company, by the way. I just am a client. And they have all those digitalized things that you can customize and then open letters and things like that. And it's really fun. The icebreaker. Remember the icebreaker we did today? Well, it was an icebreaker related to our theme. We asked you guys to come up with your secret agent name. That was already part of our theme. The outfits that the facilitators are wearing. One of my pro tips is that sometimes you want to have serious conversations in the room and you don't want to be dressed like, I don't know, a detective. What I do is I come up with a costume that can be very easily taken out. So for example, I have a hat, detective hat that I would start the program with. If I go into the real world, I simply take off my hat and now I'm Chris again. So then it becomes very easy for me to be moving in these two worlds. Participant materials and slides, of course, is the easiest part, right? Slides and PowerPoints and so on. To find good images, if you guys do not have Canva, you definitely should. I'm going to write, Maggie, can you write Canva in the chat while I'm talking? Oh, you don't have access?
I do not have access to the chat, yes.
Okay, so it's Canva is great, and another one that is great is called Pixabay, and you can get amazing images for free that way. Well, Canva, The best images are in the Pro account, but the Pro account is not terribly expensive, and trust me, it's totally worth it. And no, I don't have anything to do with Canva either. And then finally, the celebration, the graduation. So, in a detective program that my husband and I ran for team building, people received little laminated cards like agent, whatever, with the person's last name and their picture. And folks loved it because then they could take those little laminated cards afterwards and demonstrate that they had been part of the training. Also, any follow up. So, a month later, you want people to remember something important that they learned. Well, now you can send them a detective note or I don't know, a treasure map in which they have to hunt for clues in their organization. I don't know, but you can be playful with this, and it really helps the memorization and the engagement of people. Now, Maggie was saying that it's good for you to have your go-to theme, and she said that my go-to theme is medieval, and that's right. And I recycle it, so I've used it for a King Arthur leadership program, and then now I use it for a Game of Thrones program. So what you can see there is me dressed as Daenerys Targaryen, and I tell my students, you haven't lived until you see your professor dressed up as Daenerys Targaryen. And by the way, as a Latina woman, I look hideous as Daenerys Targaryen. But I do it all for fun. I have 2 sets of Daenerys Targaryen wigs. And in the last day of the class, I literally dress up as Daenerys, and I have a speech in High Valyrian that I actually wrote myself and managed to translate with the help of Duolingo, which actually, believe it or not, teaches High Valyrian, and with High Valyrian translators. And that's what we do in the last day. Then I have a film in which all my students show up as lords, as sir and lady, and so on. And everything that we learn about ethics is then connected to the medieval theme. Also note the letter that is on the screen. Afterwards, I will give you guys, I'll send you by email the link to this presentation so that you can see. But you'll see that even my letter to them is playful. So today, Wednesday, April 14, I'm at the castle, and then I give them the address between such and such a time. Call me if I can hear you, or direct your raven too. So if you, how many people here, like, give me a thumbs up if you've seen the Game of Thrones? Right. So if you've seen the Game of Thrones, if you haven't seen the Game of Thrones, guys, what are you waiting for? If you have seen the Game of Thrones, then you know what the Raven is. It's all the messages are sent by Raven. So you see how I was themifying even the letters that I was sending my students. And usually people have a blast. Maggie?
Oh, look, clue number 2 has emerged. So take some notes. Let's see. Can you guys figure out what this puzzle is?
Oops,
Oh,
I went too
did
fast.
everybody? Yeah.
Say when.
We can get a thumbs up when people think that they've solved it or have enough information. All right, so we have a new mission for you, secret agents. This one is called the Game of Themes. So here's the goal. You're going to pick 3 of the things that we've discussed today that you can theme. So anything on this slide, invitation letters, icebreaker, outfits, etc. It can be any 3 things on this list. And then you're going to take your theme from mission 4. Remember what? That's why mission 4 is so important. And either in the chat if you are on YouTube, or at your table if you are here in Room Key with us, you're going to discuss how you could apply that theme to those 3 things. Does that make sense to everyone?
And this time we're going to give you a little more time to work on, because I think the last discussions were super short. So how much time do you guys think you need? Do you think 5 minutes would be enough this time? Give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Thumbs
5
up it
minutes,
is.
okay? 5 minutes it is, okay. Oops. Every time I move this, it goes back. All right, here I am.
How are we doing, folks? Did we get through everyone? Do we need a little more time?
Yep. Give us a thumbs up if you're okay. All right. Is there anybody who would like to come to the stage to summarize what came up at your tables?
I see Dawn.
All right, Don, come on over.
I'm trying to convince Sandra to get over her stage fright. She has a great idea. Come on, Sandra, please. I'll say it otherwise, but I'm not going to be able to say it as good as you are. All right. There she is. Woo! Let's clap it up for her. It's nerve-wracking to get up here, everybody. Nice.
Hi, Sandra.
Hello.
What did you have in mind?
I'm supposed to be up here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we have a great idea related to wine tasting as the theme. Sandra, do you want to walk through the thought process and the invites?
Sure. So we thought about doing an invite with the theme of a passport, where you take a wine tour across the world, and having people dress in an outfit that tailored to the different countries that we would be having this wine tour. And then as kind of a wrap up, we would have kind of like a duty free shop where they could, kind of exit and take stuff with them or what have you, be kind of the materials or whatever that they're leaving with.
I love that. And I love how much excitement it builds for the training.
Not to mention you get wine.
I love that too. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandra. Is there anybody else who would like to share any ideas that you had? And you can share them in the chat if you'd like, or you can come over here to the stage, or I can give you the public mic. Either way.
Oh, looks like we have a raised hand.
Where? Who
It was
has a raised
Christina.
hand? Oh, cool.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Yeah. What we talked about at the table, it's for example to make a theme out of the follow up on the courses. With a certain periodicity of 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know. Just send kind of quizzes, but with maybe the avatar, the detective, and ask questions for them, for the participant to answer, and maybe get some kind of points for answering well, and do this with a certain periodicity, and whomever remembers more at the end, like in 6 months, will get some kind of extra bonus material or something.
That sounds
I like
great.
that.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Go ahead, Bags.
And I think you bring up a really good point, is that the themes and the things that come out of themes can be relatively, I don't mean simple, but they don't have to be these elaborate, you dress up entirely as Daenerys Targaryen and develop an entire board game. Like, they can be quizzes with pictures added, or you put on a hat, or you put a couple of pictures on your PowerPoints. You want to theme your presentation, but also I can do what you can. Anything that you do is better than nothing, and sometimes simple things are better than elaborate things.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Definitely, it's a step forward from what we do now, like nothing. So, yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Christina.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. So now let's talk about adapting games. So we've talked about the importance of games. We've talked about themifying, because themes are part of the game. They are part of the game environment. Remember what Maggie said about that model by, I forgot the guy's name, Maggie, what's the guy's name who had the
Radoff,
four
John
buttons?
Radoff.
Radoff, thank you. Remember that immersion is part of the deal. So what the theme does is it helps with the immersion. Now let's talk about how do you create games itself, like the process of creating games, because many people here, how many of you give me, give me a thumbs down if you're worried about the idea of creating a game from scratch? Anybody here nervous about creating a game from scratch? Give me a thumbs down. Oh, it looks like, so okay, how many of you are excited about creating a game from scratch? Then give me a thumbs up. Right. Actually, there are people in here who are
We
happy to
usually
create one
don't.
from scratch. Oh, wow. Okay,
We
we got a
usually
bunch
don't
of
have
you.
this many.
I know. Usually we don't. The good news is that there's something for everybody. You can actually adapt an existing game, or you can create one from scratch. And most of the times we do a combination of both. Before you come up with your game, you need to think about, you need to gather some intel. So is it going to be face to face or online? Because obviously you're going to have different resources and different rules and different systems depending on where people are going to be. Is it synchronous? What kinds of resources do people have together? For example, we ran this presentation, Maggie and I, on Zoom. On Zoom, we could lead people to open other like Maggie, what's the word I'm looking for? Other tabs on their computer. Here it was going to be harder to do that, but here on the other hand, it was easier for people to work with their teams. So then there are things that we come up with for the games that consider the environment that people are going to be in. How many players are going to be playing at the time? Is it a table just like we have here, or is it just a couple of people? How much time do you have to put it together? Because you can put a game together in minutes. In fact, Maggie here is a genius for creating simple games in less than sometimes 2 minutes. I've never seen anything like it. But you can create very simple games, such as the Scramble game that we came up with. Well, how long did it take us, Maggie, to come up with that?
Oh goodness, I think it took literally about 5 minutes, and a good 3 minutes of that was you trying to put the words on the PowerPoint.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but basically, all we did was Google automatic unscramble creator, and we already had our words, and that was it. The rest of the time was figuring out how to import the image into Canva. And also how much time do you have to run it? Because some simulations and games are very elaborate and take a lot of time, and others are not. Here are games that we have adapted. Apples to Apples became. Are you guys familiar with Apples to Apples? Give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with Apples to Apples. Okay, so I have thumbs up. Let me use the non PG-13 version, which is what is it called, Maggie? Something about Against Humanity? Cards Against
Cards Against
Humanity.
Humanity.
Okay, so who is familiar with that? All right. Okay, it's basically Apples to Apples and Cards Against Humanity are the same game. Apples to Apples is just the PG-13 version. So basically, it's a bunch of cards, and people have to connect some cards that have names of people or names of places or names of inappropriate things with other cards that just have concepts. Well, imagine that you could use that for anything that you're trying to teach. Game of Morals is just a board game that I created to teach ethics, in which people had to answer some questions about ethics as they moved around to save Ned Stark. Taboo is a great game to adapt, because can just think about it. You have to say a word without actually saying it. Well, that word could be one of the company values. It could be something that you want people to learn about customer service. So that's a great game too. And telephone game. Imagine that you're teaching, I don't know, your company mission and you want people to remember it. So you make a good big line of people and somebody says it in the one place and you want it to go intact all the way to the end. That would be one way for you to play the telephone game.
It's also great in foreign language classes, by the way.
Yes.
All right. So we have a new mission for everybody if you should accept it. So mission 6 is the evidence. And yeah. So this is going to be another small discussion prompt, so more of a share and report than a huge discussion. But we're just going to have you share in the chat if you have access to it, or you're one of our YouTube friends, or share out loud in your group the first game that comes to mind that you could adapt for a training program. Any game that you can think of will do. Making sense? Give me a thumbs up if I'm making sense. Cool. All right, I'll let you guys get to that. We'll give you a minute.
Max, let me know when you're ready, okay?
Yeah, can everybody give me a thumbs up when your tables got shared? Awesome. Okay, it looks like we're good to go. Do you see any interesting games in the chat, Ma?
Let me open my chat again here and see what I saw. Hold on. So they said Catan, and I'm thinking, ooh, adapting Catan would be incredible. Of course, I'd have to learn that crazy game before, but that would be fun. Usama said puzzles, which, yes, I've done amazing team building programs with puzzles. And like one little tip that maybe you've already used is you put incomplete puzzles at each table, but you don't tell people that they're incomplete, and then soon people realize that they all have to work together as a room in order to achieve the puzzle. Legos are awesome for pretty much everything. Laura just said Legos. I also mentioned, because Barbara said Jeopardy. There's an app or a company called JeopardyLabs.com. You can play it for free, or it's $20 lifetime. I'm not kidding. It's that cheap. And it's super easy to create online Jeopardy games with JeopardyLabs.com. So I like technology toys.
She really likes technology toys. If you would like to ask her after this presentation is over, she probably knows anything that you need. But one piece of advice we have for you about adapting games is to look for games to adapt. So one of the most common things that Mom and I used to do before the pandemic, and we're very excited to be able to do that again, is we used to go to what we call the scene of the crime. We used to go to a game store or Barnes & Noble, and the game section. And we used to just look around and see what games had kind of interesting bones. So they had interesting rules or interesting concepts. And we would play them and see how we could turn them into a into a training game. And you could do this too. You can look at the games in your basement or on Amazon and see what might be interesting to adapt. So I really encourage you to kind of keep your eyes peeled for good bones of games, if that makes sense.
Okay, so as you are adapting games, consider your learning objectives to begin with, right? Because the game rules, as I have on the third bullet there, your game rules should be mimicking real life. So if real life is going to be fast and furious, then you're not going to give people a lot of time, for example. One game that I like to play, I have a simulation that I run in training sessions and also with my grad students, in which I get somebody to play the role of the terrible leader so that people can experience what that feels like. One of the things that the terrible leader does is at the very last minute, when people are trying to save the world, or there's a bomb, or there's an explosion, or there's a hurricane, or whatever crazy disaster I invented, the leader all of a sudden comes and says, all right, everybody, stop everything because the CEO is asking for a major report and you all have to stop and write the report. Believe it or not, that actually mimics real life, because in real life, it's not unusual for us to be in the heaviest time of work, and then our leaders come up with a crazy report. So you want your game to mimic real life. Draw from the theme, but it's fine to change the game to adapt the theme. For example, if you're playing Clue, which obviously has a theme of detectives and people being murdered and Mr. Mustard or whoever it was, you can get the idea of Clue, but now maybe it's not a murder. Maybe it's some kind of other thing that you want to discover, and now you change the game board into the main areas of your organization. So now people have the organization cafeteria, or the organization factory floor, or the organization service area. So you create a game board that looks like your organization, and then you give people something to discover that doesn't have to be a murder, because that may be a little weird. And the last thing is pilot, pilot, pilot. You noticed today that many times I was fumbling, I was going into the wrong room, and that's with us having several meetings and with Maggie and I having piloted. If you had been here on the day that Maggie and I piloted, it was a comedy of errors. It was literally a comedy. We had our volunteer laughing to tears at all the things we were doing wrong. And we're still doing things wrong today. So the point is, when you do something for the first time, something is going to go wrong. And of course, those of us in training have a higher tolerance for messes, because we have to. Anytime you come up with something new, you're going to mess up in some way. But your participants may not know that. So pilot, pilot, pilot. And that takes us to mission 7, improvise. How can you adapt your game? So that game that you guys talked about, like I was seeing puzzles and Catan and Trouble and Jeopardy and using Legos, and Barbara said Kahoot. So how can you adapt? Have a very brief conversation about how you can adapt your game. Those of you who had game ideas, go. And if you wish, you can write your thoughts on the chat. Otherwise, if you want to be recognized at the end, let me know. Okay, Maggie, your call.
Alrighty, everyone. So looks like we have our final clue in the clue hunt. And you solved the mystery.
So before we
Okay.
go into, oh, sorry, Maggie.
Did you have a comment before we continue?
No, I was just going to say that before people actually choose the final clue, there's one more thing that we wanted them to do. Go ahead, Max.
Yep, we've got one more mission for you, secret agents. This one is called The Gadgets, and it's kind of our wrap up. So we want you to just put in the chat if you have access to it, or you're one of our YouTube secret agents, or quickly share at your tables what is one thing that you will use from today.
I'll open the chat here to see if somebody's writing there.
And for our secret agents at the tables, if you could give us a thumbs up when everyone on your table has shared, that would be great.
Ooh. Summer just said that she came up with an activity with building paper tower. Building paper tower. I'm kind of I'm kind of interested now in connecting to Usama to find out what on earth that is.
Do you guys feel this feeling of like, I want to do that training? That's the magic of gamification.
Totally. And one thing that I love about Usama's idea is that building paper tower, it's like paper. It couldn't be simpler ingredients, right? Sometimes I've done amazing team building projects with building towers of playing cards. By the way, playing cards are amazing for games. You can use playing cards for pretty much everything under the sun. Yeah, that's great. Okay, let's move on because I'm just watching here for time. Maggie, take it on.
All right, so we're going to. We got to finish this presentation, guys. We need to finish the presentation. So we need your help to help us figure out how we're going to end this presentation. So looks like we have left our a final review of our clues, so you can look them all over again. All right. Everybody got your ideas in mind? Okay. So one of these four phrases is the final phrase that we were going to use to end this presentation. Use your clues to figure out which phrase is going to be in the safe that our secret agents are infiltrating right now.
And if you can write them on the chat, guys. Maybe the one person at your table who can do that. Which number is it? Okay, so Laura is saying number 1, be precise, copy, reuse the same. Usama is saying 2, cooperate, copy, adapt, recycle. I think that's what I'm getting here. Let me show you the pictures just one more time. Okay, are you ready for the big reveal? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. All right. Okay, here we go. And cooperate. Cooperate. Cooperate with each other. Get help from each other. A lot of folks say, oh, I'm not imaginative. I can't create all that. But the imagination that you can get at a table with your friends or family or colleagues is amazing. Cooperation, imagination, and can be individual, but innovation is a team sport. So coming up with something different often requires talking to several people. Copy and adapt things that you have seen several times, such as Maggie was saying before, you should have your theme that you would always use. And finally, recycle what you've already used, what you've already done, do it again, maybe with a little bit of change, with a different theme. Everything can be reused and repurposed. So you don't have to create elaborate things all the time. You just change them, adapt them, and move on. Maggie, any other thoughts over here?
Nope, I think you have covered everything.
All right. And by the way, this animation was also Presenters Media. So that's what I meant by I love Presenters Media, because it gives me these little snippets that I can use. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to call Don here to the floor in case anybody has a question about Room Key itself.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Maggie. You two were fantastic, and I love the coal operating pun. That is genius. Well done. So I'll be real quick, and then we can hop into networking and everyone can meet each other. So I started this company about 2-3 years ago, and it's a free product, which means that anyone in this room can create a room just like this, and you can host events, or we have smaller room options as well where you can host meetings. So if that's something that's of interest to you or to your company, I'm totally available, literally all hours of the day. I live in London, but I'm happy to work your time zone. So just feel free to contact me on LinkedIn. You can find my LinkedIn if you click on my avatar with your finger, and then there's a little profile link to my LinkedIn. Just message me there, and I'll see if I can onboard your community. But more importantly, let's give another round of applause for the two of them, Chris and Maggie, because this was really, really something engaging and fun, and I appreciate this a lot.
And a big thank you. A big thank you to Don. Don, thank you so much for all your help for as we were onboarding in this different training method, right, Maggie?
Yes.
It was a lot of fun, and it makes a lot of sense to talk about gamification and themification and things like that in a room like this. So this was amazing. I'm looking forward to having more events, especially from Linked HR, and having people maybe have different tables in which at each table people are discussing a different topic. We could get different experts come and in each table to talk about a topic. So that was great. In terms of the SHRM number, especially for those of you who are listening on in YouTube, it's activity 21S as in Sam 5, T as in Thomas, UX. Anything can be a game, so if you enter that activity number, that should work. But you will receive a letter from me if you registered for this presentation with the information on the presentation. And thank you, Maggie and I want to thank you very much. Here is our contact information if you wish to contact us. Maggie, any final words there?
Hope you guys enjoyed it, mostly. Thank you for saving Tradertopia and being awesome participants today.
Let's give a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, everybody. Awesome. Thank you.
And if anybody has any questions for us, I think I'm going to sit in the cyan table for a little while. And Maggie, maybe you can go to the pink one, or what color is that? Is that coral? In case anybody has a question for us.
That works for me.